Hey guys, this is Jeff Stanek with Figured Out Baseball. Got a great Figured Out Baseball podcast today that I'm really excited about. We're being joined by Paul Rozzelle. He's the head coach at Catawba Valley Community College, junior college program in Hickory, North Carolina, and a really good one at that. I'll give you a quick background on Coach Rozzelle, and then we'll get into questions with him. He's a a graduate of Appalachian State in 2008. 2010, he had his first college coaching job. He was an assistant coach at Catawba Valley, and that was the school's first year of baseball. So they started the baseball program in 2010, and Coach Rozzelle was there for that. In the springs of 11 and 12, he served as the strength and conditioning coach at Catawba Valley Community College. Then 2013, he switched gears a little bit and went to be an assistant coach and strength and conditioning coach at Bandy's High School in North Carolina. While he was there, he was part of a group of people that co-wrote a book called The Definitive Guide to Youth Athletic Strength, Conditioning, and Performance, which ultimately went on to be a bestseller on Amazon. I recommend you checking that out if you have not done it before, if that's an area you're interested in. In 2014, he went back to Catawba Valley, became the recruiting coordinator and catching instructor at CVCC. In 2014, the team won the regular season conference championship. They also won what was at that time a school record 41 games. 2015 was his first season as the head coach at Catawba Valley. His first season as head coach, the team went 39-19 overall. They won the fourth straight regular season championship. They won the region tournament that year. They won the Southeast District Championship, went to the Division II World Series, and actually finished third in the country in the NJCAA Division II World Series. In 2015, that same year, Coach Rozzelle got his master's degree from Coker College. In 2016, he coached 7 all-region players, including the Region 10 Player of the Year, first time in program history that Catawba Valley had the Player of the Year on the team. In 2017, he coached the National Player of the Year, first time in program history to have a National Player of the Year on the team. That same player was named an All-American. They also had a Gold Glove winner for the third straight season at Catawba Valley. May 14th of 2017, Coach Rozzelle won his 100th game as a college head coach. In 2018, the team won a new school record 42 games. They had the Region Pitcher of the Year in 2018. That was the first time in program history that's happened. They had an All-American on the team for the 7th straight year. They had 2 players drafted, and that summer, 2018, was the first of 3 straight seasons where Coach Rozzelle has worked with the USA Baseball National Team Identification Series. That's where he worked in 2018. That is the a selection tournament where coaches pick next year's USA national team. In 2019, he actually, with Team USA, worked with the 14U National Team Development Program with an unbelievable coaching staff. That might be something we get into here on the podcast. 2020 was his 6th season as the head coach at CVCC. He's been an associate scout with the New York Mets. A guy with a really cool background, has done quite a few things that I'm interested to talk to him about. Coach Rozzelle, very much appreciate you being on the podcast with us today.
Jeff, I appreciate you having me, man. Honored to be here, and that's a really long list of stuff that just, I guess, is made it sound good, but it really isn't all that cool. I'm a nobody, but it's nice that our program gets a little bit of love and admiration. But again, that's all dedicated to the players that we've had.
No doubt, the players are a big part of it, but the players, you know, my opinion, don't go anywhere without a good coaching staff, and you've been a part of some really good teams there at Catawba Valley. I think the humbleness is probably one of the reasons for that, but that much we all I think appreciate hearing this, and I know it's uncomfortable for guys sometimes to hear their bio and to have someone talk about them, that much, but I think it's important for listeners on this podcast just to see how much success you guys have had in a short period of time. The program was started in 2010. By 2014, you guys were winning 40 games. You've been nationally ranked, I believe, every year. At least since then. I'm not sure when the first year was of being nationally ranked, but several years in a row of having All-Americans, which is not a small feat for any junior college program anywhere. And you guys are in a really good hot spot for college baseball. When you were there, Coach Rozzelle, in 2010, when the program first started, can you kind of talk about what the atmosphere was like, just sort of what was the situation there when baseball was first started at Catawba Valley in the spring of 2010?
appreciate the direction of Coach Frank Pate, who has been a mentor for me for a long time and still is. He's actually now the head coach at Caldwell Community College, which is our neighbor, a new Division III program that's 20 minutes away. I joke with him all the time. He's the winningest coach in Lenore Ryan College, which is a local Division II here. He's the winningest coach in their history, and then he got the job here and started here, and then now he's got a job at Caldwell. And I said, I don't know if there's any other college coach that's gotten 3 head coaching jobs 30 minutes from his house in college. That's a pretty impressive feat. But we started under him, and he set the direction it's on for the program. The first year, obviously, we're open our doors to anybody and everybody, and to see 70, 80 guys walk through the door was interesting, but we worked through it. Coach Pate kind of is one of the great leaders and motivators that I've ever been around, and he got that team kind of a lovable group of ragtag hooligans and misfits, but got them all together, and man, they love playing baseball, and he got them to buy in, and we start the season and win a bunch in a row and come out, we're 14th in the country, and it's like, wow, we might be onto something here. And I remember he told me one time, he said, my goal is to compete for national championships in 3 years. And I, of course, I believed him always, but in the back of your mind, you always thought he was a little crazy. And then you look up, 2010 goes by, 2011 goes by, and 2012 we finished 5th at the World Series in Oklahoma. So it all started from him and the program. In terms of the program success, he laid the foundation, and myself and our staff have kind of fumbled and fumbled our way to try to figure out a way to improve it here over the last 6 years. But it was an interesting deal. It was an honor to be a part of. I was a know-nothing coach. I was there literally to do whatever Coach Pate told me and trying to soak up as much information as I possibly could, and was just humbled and blessed to have that opportunity to be on staff and learn from him, and then obviously grow in my role as a coach each and every year after.
You mentioned buy-in there being one of the most important things, or at least one of the things that stood out to me, that he got the players to buy in to his vision, to what he wanted to do. How exactly, if you can put it into words, how exactly do you create buy-in on a team, especially a new team that doesn't have returners? They're all there for the first time. They're kind of learning the head coach's system, and there's nothing really established there. How do you, as a coach, create buy-in with your players?
Well, I graduated with a business degree. One of my favorite classes that I ever took in school was strategic management, and I really believe wholeheartedly that if you don't have a clear mission, vision, values, and in terms of direction of whether it's your business, your organization, or in this case your program, I think it's easy to kind of get lost, and it's going to be harder to get that buy-in. So if you can give guys clear direction as to what we are going to do every day, I think it makes it easier to buy in. That doesn't guarantee that it's going to happen, but if guys are coming in the door and they're hearing what you're about in the recruiting visits, and they're seeing it on social media, and they're seeing it if they're coming to games and watch practice, now when they get here, they already know about it. And we don't waver off of those things, and those are non-negotiable. I don't believe in rules per se, but we believe in standards. So, you don't get a list of things you can't do or not allowed to do. We just tell you what you're expected to do. And then from there, you just hold people accountable to that. Accountable doesn't mean that you're kicking people off the team at left and right or doing whatever, but, we have accountability groups in the fall. So, if one of our standards is we don't miss class, that means if somebody misses class, well, that accountability group may have some punishment or may have to suffer. And what I found is that when the guys and the teammates start kind of driving the ship, it makes that buy-in a whole heck of a lot easier, because obviously players have respect for coaches, and I believe that. But if they're like me, I almost value the respect and admiration of my peers more so than I would necessarily an individual coach. And because I didn't want to be the guy that let guys down or my team down or whatever. So when you can kind of create that environment, and I know culture's the hot, sexy sexy word now, but it is that way for a reason, because if you can create that environment to where things can kind of auto-correct themselves and the players can kind of hold themselves accountable, I think that's how you can get that buy-in to what you really want, and it doesn't have anything to do with wins or losses on the baseball field.
As far as setting kind of a clear vision and talking to recruits even before they commit, they arrive on campus, talking about the vision, do you mind talking about what do you share with your players as far as the vision, as far as the direction of the program? What do your players hear from you? Do you talk about more day-to-day? Do you give them a long-term vision, like we expect to compete for national championship every year? Do you keep it more like we want to win the conference every year, and then you kind of let the rest take care of itself? I'm kind of curious as to just what sort of vision and expectation that you share on the field. Well, let's talk about on the field first, that you share with your players and incoming recruits.
So let me unpack that the best I can. First, I'll go ahead and tell you, our mission is to provide a first-rate developmental experience for our student athletes in the classroom and on the field. We're developing men. We value the person over the player. Our vision is to be the premier junior college program in NCAA Division II by providing the best instruction through technology and data-driven methods, while providing an education that will prepare students for four-year schools and hopefully a professional career. And our values that we attack obstacles every day with relentlessness and understand the true meaning of being selfless, and that we own our decisions. That leads us to our values. That gets into the more day-to-day of what our guys hear. Selfless, relentless, ownership. And I know every program has taglines and things, but I just believe them to be true. I believe that if we beat these things in to our head, we hold ourselves accountable to these things, not just for players, but the coaching staff as well, that we will have success. So the first one for us is selfless. We need less of you. The success of the collective means more than the individual. We are here to serve others. I firmly believe that. Relentlessness. A lot of people think relentlessness is like this playing with anger and rage and going crazy or whatever, but for us, it's not. It's a pursuit without interruption. It's constant, steady, and unwavering. Water always finds its way type deal. Is that regardless of what happens, we're just going to keep coming. We're going to keep coming, whether that's on the baseball field or in the classroom or whatever. That's kind of what we want to be. And then ownership, obviously we got to be accountable for your actions. Understand that what's happening to you doesn't define you. However, your response does. Control the controllable, which is Coach Speak. Everybody's heard it. And then just pray about the rest. You'll figure it out. So those are kind of the primary things that we talk about. And okay, well now how does that translate into the field? Well, if you go back to what I said earlier, the better the person, I believe the better the player will be. So we got to work the person first and try to drive home those values. And then we take a developmental strategy with the players, and we start with long-term goals, but I don't want the goals to be broad, right? Like I know you had said that, win the conference, win the region or whatever. To me, that's an outcome-based thought. Like we have zero control over that, but we can control every aspect of doing what we can to get to that result. So what I want them to do is give a real tangible developmental goal on the field. And because that's why they're at junior college, and we'll talk about all that here in a little bit. They're here because they're trying to get better to go on to another opportunity, whether it's a better financial opportunity, a bigger school, whatever the case may be. So if a pitcher walks in and he's 85, 86 off the mound, but he said, Coach, I want to be 90 by the time I leave, or by the end of this year, now that's the long-term tangible goal, and we work backwards from there. So we work backwards from there. So if you want to be that in May, where do you need to be in March, in January, in December, in November, all the way back to wherever it is you're starting from. And then from there, you can get into your micro goals of what you need to do every day. So, hey, I'm attacking the weight room. I got to give the strength and conditioning coach to make sure my nutrients, my macronutrients are good. I'm taking in enough calories. My lifts are, I'm getting the appropriate lifts in per week, the appropriate sleep, whatever the case may be. My long toss, I know that, hey, I'm trying to get to 90. I want to push past 300 feet, but right now I'm long tossing at 270. Well, I've got to improve on that. I got to get past 300 and get to 320, 330, 340. What do I need to do that? And so now you've kind of put a sight on their target for them, right? So you've taken broad goals and you've made something small and tangible that they can actually achieve, and you just lock in laser focus. So you go through that process, you prepare, you evaluate, and you just repeat it. It's just it's worked for us, and that's kind of what we look at in terms of the developmental process for our guys. And obviously each guy is different, but that's pretty much the basis for everything that we do.
Just to touch on one of the things you said earlier a little bit more, you talked about that there aren't necessarily rules within your team. You don't have a rule sheet that the guys need to follow, but you just basically have expectations. Is that something you mind talking about? If some of the stuff you don't want to share, that's perfectly fine. But what do you expect from your players? How's that conversation go at the beginning of the year to set the expectation for them and give them an idea of, what you expect out of them day to day?
Yeah, I mean, number one, we talk about faith, family, and sports. All right, so the first thing that we need to do is I need you to be the best son that you can be to your parents and represent your family well. I need you to be the best student that you can be in the classroom and do what is asked of you. And then I need you to be the best athlete that takes ownership in their career. Little stuff, you're going to sit in the first 2 rows of class. You're going to turn in your progress reports every 2 weeks. You're going to be heard saying yes, sir, yes, ma'am, or thank you, and you're welcome, and just little stuff like that is just hold yourself to a standard that what's the saying that we've always heard is that be the person your grandparents think you are. That's kind of been the basis for a lot of our stuff. That's what we want to do and represent day in and day out.
I like that. I'm not sure I've ever heard that before.
I heard that a couple years ago. I was like, that's perfect.
Every grandparent thinks their grandkid is the best thing on earth, right? Maybe more so than the parents. Well, let's talk about junior college a little bit. And I'm a huge junior college advocate, as you know from our conversation when we weren't recording. And I think it's a great level for a lot of guys. And I'm wondering, we're recording this in early August of 2020. COVID-19 is still kind of leaving a lot of the sports world in question. We don't know exactly what's going to happen yet with college sports at different levels, even high school sports going forward, especially fall sports of this year. How do you expect, do you have any idea what the junior college landscape is going to look like? Obviously maybe nobody knows in 5 years, but this coming year, all seniors across 4-year levels were given, at least at the NCAA level, were given another year of eligibility. How do you expect junior college baseball to change, or even to sort of fit into the new landscape of what college athletics are going to look like? From what we know today, what's it going to look like in the next year? How does junior college baseball fit in there? Maybe how do things change because of some changes due to COVID?
I think junior college baseball is going to become a dominant player in the decision process more so than ever before. And frankly, because we have an influx of players. You mentioned that guys got the year back NCAA. Well, they got the year back in NCAA as well. Then you take the draft, and now you go from 40 rounds to 5. And let's say 1,200 guys get drafted in a normal year. Let's even just say the number's half that actually sign, right? Well, now there's close to 500 guys that would be in professional baseball that this upcoming year are going to be in college baseball. And so you have programs that are shutting their doors through all levels, and I think unfortunately there may be more to come. So we're getting more players with less opportunities. And now I think the junior college route is going to be pretty prevalent. And we've already seen it, obviously, if during quarantine, if you got locked in on the transfer portal, it was a zoo in there. And I don't think that's going to change. I think we're going to see another huge uptick depending on what happens this fall season with the NCAA level. But even after next year, because guys are going to be places and they're not going to get opportunities, and they're going to want to look for a place to play. And I think junior college baseball is going to be a pretty big factor in terms of the college baseball landscape over the next couple of years. And like I said, I don't think it's just 1 year. I think we're going to see these ramifications for the next possibly five years on.
What's the biggest sell of junior college over four-year schools for guys? Maybe they're looking in normal years, but even now as guys, I mean, kind of as you mentioned, they're the Division I rosters, the Division II rosters, they're going to be overcrowded. And the kind of how at least it's going to play out in my mind, and obviously I'm not in the front lines anymore, but there are going to be too many guys at Division I level, and guys on those rosters are going to see that, you know, playing time is not – if there's 40 guys on your team now because you have some seniors that came back plus the incoming freshmen, 42 guys on a roster, you know, typically in an average year, you know, in 56 games, you have 9 to 12 pitchers that actually pitch a lot, and probably, you know, 12, 13 hitters that actually see a regular plate appearances. There's a lot of guys that aren't going to get a lot of opportunities, and that's going to create trickle down. There's going to be guys that are going to transfer, you know, down levels. Upperclassmen that don't have the junior college option will have to go down to D2, NAIA, even Division III schools. You know, guys, and then Division II, then those rosters become even more crowded, and guys will transfer down from those levels, and they're going to, you know, Division IIs and IIIs are going to be crowded as well because of the same things. And it seems like at every level, guys are going to have to transfer down to find playing time. For one reason or another, and I'm sure a lot of those guys are going to end up at junior college. When you're talking to guys in a normal year, or even right now, talking to those type of players that maybe see the writing on the wall, what is the biggest sell about junior college? Is it the opportunity to sort of get re-recruited and put yourself back out there? Is it an opportunity to develop and see if you can go to a higher level? Is it you know, is it playing time? Because obviously you still have the same number of people on the roster, roughly, but you've only got primarily freshmen and sophomores. I know you guys, junior college allowed guys to come back, but I'm sure academically a lot of guys had to move on, even if they wanted to come back from the junior college level. So is it playing time? Is it an opportunity to go to a higher level? Is it an opportunity to find a four-year school where they can actually play and be a guy? Like, say a guy comes from a Division I where he was on the roster but wasn't going to see a lot of playing time, then he comes to you, and after there he's looking for a place that, you know, wants him to be a starter. What is or are the biggest sells for you trying to recruit guys to your level?
Well, the first thing is great education at a great price, right? So especially right now with all the uncertainty of you know, we're paying for schools, but yet we're having online classes, but still coming with a pretty hefty price tag. You know, obviously we can sell the same education for predominantly most of the schools in terms of their first 2 years at a substantially better price point, which is intriguing to start with. The second thing is a reset, especially for those guys that are looking to bounce back. And that's a normal year, that's a new year, that's this year, it doesn't matter. It's a reset. You know, they can come in, they can kind of get their feet back underneath them, and now maybe they committed to a school, and whether people like it or not, they committed to the school for the hashtag blessed Twitter announcement, their junior year of high school, but, you know, they didn't really maybe not been the best fit, and they maybe didn't do all their research. Now they made kind of the wrong choice. They get to come to JUCO, work, play high competitive, get coached, get developed at programs that are proving that they're doing that, and then reset. Now let's find the right fit. So those are really our big sales. Playing time I never talk about because that's earned. I don't think I've ever told a player that you're going to start or you're going to do this, that, and the other. So we don't talk about that. But obviously, right, like a guy's going to have a pretty good idea of the rosters and who's playing where and their talent level and where they kind of see themselves fit in. And yeah, so those are always been kind of the three things that you hit on. But they don't necessarily change because of this new year. It's just maybe amplified a little bit.
The financial piece of it is something I think is extremely important. and I've had that same conversation with people. If these schools, if a bunch of 4-year schools all around the country are only going online, particularly for someone who isn't like at 400 level courses or above or whatever, it's hard for me to understand why anybody would pay to go to a private school or even a state school when you can go to the local community college, junior college, and get the same education for a fraction of the price. It doesn't make any sense to me, and I have a hard time believing that I feel like some of these schools are running themselves right out of business. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't want to, talk down on our 4-year brothers and sisters because we work closely with a lot of them. But at the same point, we have to look at things logically, and we talk about with our players like, what's your value to the team, right? Like what value do you create? So when Coach writes the line about why is he putting your name down? So we create value on ourselves, but so it's not unfair to ask of the value of our education, right? So a lot of these schools are fantastic. And they're unbelievable universities and unbelievable systems, and all that stuff is great. But again, if you're a freshman or a sophomore and you can get the same class at your local junior college or a junior college that you choose to play at a fraction of the cost, it's hard to overlook that value. And so I'm with you 100%, and we've actually prepared and starting to see a little bit of an uptick of some local kids that aren't even in athletics that are making that decision that, hey, they may be at a state school across the state. Well, we're unsure about this semester, so we're just going to stay at home and take those same classes and let you transfer back in spring, hopefully when everything's good to go.
Yeah, and I was talking in my mind, think about more even the general student than the athlete. Some of the major colleges that have, 20, 30, 40,000 kids that come there, I got to imagine that the average student is coming there. Sometimes it's the education, but I know whether it's the right thing to say or not. I know, that a lot of kids go to those schools for the social atmosphere. A lot of those kids go to school to go to the sporting events. To go watch a major college football team, to go watch a top 25 college basketball team. That's why a lot of these kids go to the big school over maybe something that's local. They can at least live at home, or again, the local community college for their first couple years of school. They want the experience of that big school, and without, if sports aren't being played and you're taking classes online at home, to me, you lose a lot of why people go there in the first place. And it concerns me that some of these schools are going to have to close their doors, but obviously they're making the decision. They've probably thought about that, but I don't know. Who knows what's going to happen? It's a strange environment, and you're just not quite sure what things are going to look like in a lot of levels. But it seems like, from what you and I have talked about, Catawba Valley's got a plan and a good one in place. The NJCAA is prepared to move forward and let sports happen in the spring. And I'm just, I'm happy, I'm thrilled about that, because I think that the kids need it. I really think that that kids that play sports, sports is a part of their identification, sure, but it's also just how they it's how they. To me, it's a stress relief for people. It's a way for them to feel accepted to be a part of the team. It's a big thing to be a part of a team. The coaching staff that a lot of guys have, the coaches are a really important part of their lives. And I just think you take those things away at every level, college level, high school level, and below. I think you really strip kids of something that's extremely important for their development and something that's important for their social and their mental well-being, and I think all those things really factor in, and I think there's more to it than just the surface level, trying to keep kids safe physically, which of course everyone wants, but I think there's a lot more to it. It's a complicated issue.
Yeah, no, I'm with you 100%. If we go back to what I said earlier, that we value the person over the player, and we actually have a pretty in-depth personal development plan. We have a life coach that we do journaling with our guys. The fall will be monthly, but as we get into the spring, it turns to weekly stuff that almost have not a lot to do with baseball, but just about being a good person and what we got to do to grow and have a growth mindset in terms of be the best person we can be. So with that being said, we very much view the aspect of social development, mental health, all those things are extremely important to us, and I think you hit the nail right on the head. Like, those are going to be big issues. And, not to downplay everything that's going on in our country, but unfortunately, I think that as bad as COVID has been, and how it's kind of run through and done its damage, I think we're not done with the total damage. I think the secondary stuff is going to be that mental health and maybe the development of kids not being where it needs to be, and the role that sports play in that is huge. And so I say all that because our athletic director said something, Nick Schroeder. He's an unbelievable resource for our school. He said something to me that kind of put it all into perspective. And he said, usually every year we're trying to see competitive advantage for our programs to win a championship. This year we're trying to play a full year. And I thought that was very telling. Like, it's nice to want to win and everything, but everything from our school and our administration right now is, what do we got to do to play? And I saw that play out. We actually had our guys yesterday in for COVID testing, all the student athletes in to start that process to make sure we get everybody tested and see where we're at. And I saw some players, and let's just say that knowing them personally, they would have bucked back on any type of wearing a mask or you telling me what to do in that regard 4 months ago. And to have players come up to me, mask, hand sanitizer, doing all the stuff, and they said, I don't care what we have to do. We're playing baseball this year. And so I think that just kind of wrapped up and speaks to your point perfectly. That's just kind of where we all are. We need to do whatever we got to do to play.
Yeah, I think that's so, it's essential at all levels. I'm sure you see the same things I do, but on social media you'll see articles sometimes or just posts from pretty prominent people just like, these are some serious side effects, peripherals for if you're not playing, and it basically boils down to, like, what do you think kids are going to do if we just shut down sports in general? What do you think kids are going to do, and how's that going to affect them? They're either going to sit on the couch, and not really do anything, which obviously we all know is not a good thing for kids' development, or kids that come from maybe bad environments, bad home environment, they're going to be in that environment more. And like, sports to some people is an escape from the unfortunate realities they live in their neighborhood or in their home or whatever it may be. And there are just an unspeakable number of benefits from playing sports. It's more than just like, I need to have something to watch, so let's get some sports on TV. It's that way maybe with Major League Baseball, but even to a point, those guys, there's a lot more to it than that. But the youth sports, it's more than just trying to win games, just like exactly what you said. We need to find a way to get kids at every age, out of their house, and on some athletic field somewhere, playing something, interacting with people and competing and all the things that are beneficial to young kids that happen in competitive sports.
To touch a little bit more on that, like, how many kids are in school only because of sports, or if you want to take it beyond sports, like any type of extracurricular club activity that they do, band, glee or whatever, drama, that they're in school and trying to do the best they can so that they can pursue this other thing. We obviously as athletic people know that because we know that story very well, of how many kids only really kind of focus at school so they can do what? So they can play. Well, now you take that away, and you're going to have a lot of kids in a lot of bad spots. And you can sit there and complain, well, they should be motivated to go to school and get an education. But to me, we help, again, we move the person forward, right, with athletic programs, with teaching, with those kind of things and those development areas that go along with being a part of a team and being a part of a program, that now you're just taking away. And to me, it's that'd be the real sad story of all of this.
Right. I mean, we all, if we're just, I think if most people are honest with themselves, we all work better when we have some sort of motivation. Something that I guess is going to, if I do this, then this has a chance to happen, or I have, when we all have something to work for. and for a lot of kids, like you said, it's the activity, whatever it is, obviously outside of sports, which I wish wish I'd mentioned that, but you did. Outside of sports, there are still a lot of things that people are able to participate in, or that's one of the main, that's the joy they get out of school. They go to class so that they can do these other things. And I think it's, hopefully people making decisions take all that into account. I want to kind of switch gears a little bit, Coach Rozzelle, and talk about your experience with Team USA. Something that very few coaches get to be a part of. The other coaches that you have been around because of Team USA, I mean, it's really a who's who type of list. Had to have been an unbelievable experience for you. Can you kind of talk about how that began? Obviously, the first year that you did it was 2018. You guys won 42 games. You had a really good year. Did it start by just kind of knowing the right person? Did someone seek you out? Was it the success you had there or the proximity, being in North Carolina? What exactly was it that got you to that opportunity at the beginning?
Well, obviously, just like anything else in this world, everything usually starts with a relationship. And I had a really close friend who's still a close friend, and we were actually competitors. He was the head coach at Patrick Henry Community College, and he came in and beat on us, won the league championship, and we had knockdown, drag-out fights on the field. But off the field, we were both young coaches and hungry and trying to figure out who we were and what we wanted to do. So we actually ended up, through those knockdown, drag-out fights, developed a really good friendship, and that's Frank Jagoda. Frank has worked with USA Baseball and been a part of it, so he knew. I always looked from afar, and I'm like, man, that is so cool. I would love to do anything associated with that one day. And so he just kind of kept on, and he had me email some people, and I just kind of kept emailing and saying, hey, whatever opens up, you want me to come down there and sell tickets, I will. Like, I don't care. I would love to be a part of it in any way, shape, or form. And then Frank, with the help of Frank, was able to eventually, they had a situation in that 2018 year, I believe, with NTIS. They needed some coaches for the Mountain West region for a couple different age groups, and they were like, hey, you're a couple hours away. I know it's last second, but would you be willing to fill in? You're not going to know any of your players. You're going to write a lineup out and get to know them and just try to run the tournament and get us through this event. And I will be there 100%. Went down there, had an unbelievable experience. Not necessarily tied in exactly with USA Baseball, but just to be a part of it was nice. And apparently I did an okay job, and they invited me back. And then that next year was asked to do the West Championships as a task force scout, which watch all the games, and we work with, there's a team of us, and there's usually a team leader, and you're trying to compile the list of players that we believe that can play on whatever age level the national team in the upcoming year at least enter into the selection process system. And I went to Arizona and got a call to, as soon as I got back home from Arizona, that they had an opening on the 14U National Team Development Program, and that was just an unbelievable experience from start to finish. I went down there and kind of just shut my mouth and opened my ears and eyes and just watched how USA Baseball operates at that level. Obviously all the levels that I had been at were a part of the selection process to get to that next step. So now to be a part of that was unbelievable. USA Baseball, they give those kids a first-class experience. It's a great honor and experience to be a part of that as a player and obviously as a coach. You wake up, you're getting fed, you're getting treated like big-time Division I college baseball player, pro player, whatever the thing you want to call, but they're outfitted head to toe. We're having team meetings. You're hearing from motivational speakers. You're getting on a charter bus and headed to the National Training Complex and doing workouts with unbelievable coaches, and obviously they're always getting evaluated. Then you eat lunch and you you go back to the hotel and you get ready and you come back and you play a night game. And it's just a really cool deal. You go volunteer one day, and it was just an unbelievable experience. And the coaches that I got to be around and just watch was inspiring and really just in awe. You know, Sean Stempler, the head coach of VCU, is our manager. Scott Brown, who is the pitching coach at Vanderbilt, was our pitching coach, which is like, you know, hey man, I just saw you dogpile a month ago for a national championship. Good to see you here. And then, you know, Troy Gerlach, who's been involved in USA Baseball for a while, he's a high school coach in Arizona, a great coach, very knowledgeable, and he was a part of a national team that won a gold medal. So, I mean, I'm just sitting in the dugout, like, pinching myself, going, well, this is pretty cool. I don't know why I'm here, but let's enjoy this. And then this year I've worked the North Carolina team championship. So USA Baseball is just, to me, the best organization for amateur baseball. I don't think it's a coincidence that when you watch day one of the MLB draft, all the highlight packages, their guys wearing what? They're wearing red, white, and blue with USA across their chest, because it's literally it's the best players in the world, and it's just an honor that I still, for whatever reason, get to be a part of.
That's unbelievable. And the names that you mentioned there, the guys that you've gotten to be around, awesome group of guys. Has there been anybody there? You've been working there, working with Team USA now for 3 years. Is there anybody in particular that has made a specific impact on you, a coach you've been around, or just kind of the message that a coach has given to kids, or maybe a way a coach interacts with guys that's really made a big impression on you and has changed you a little bit as far as how you interact or coach your own team?
Well, Brownie, Brownie for one, he had a couple messages to our guys in the workout setting that resonated with me and stuff that we immediately brought back to our program, and just understanding how energy is given. You know, it's almost like we're always broadcasting energy. You know, we got to figure out which channel we want it on, because energy gives and it comes back, right? So if I've got good energy and positive energy, I give it to you, you give it to the next guy, you give it to the next guy, and he continues to give it to that guy, and eventually it comes back to us as the collective in a positive manner for our team. And just thinking along those lines or whatever, I'm just off the top of my head, that was something immediately that caught my attention. But you can't really single out the coaches, because literally everybody I've come in contact with USA Baseball is a top shelf person and a top shelf coach. So the USA Baseball has a unique way and a unique fraternity of having guys come in, and the guys that end up staying usually are staying for a reason. And so every single person that was affiliated in any way, from NCIS to task force to national team selection processes, trials, PDP league, anything, they're legit, and they're dudes or dudettes, if you will. Ashley Bratcher is over the 15U down there, and she is probably, my respect level for her is through the roof, and from her position and how she carries herself and her knowledge base, it's unbelievable. So, not to get long-winded on it, but it's hard to really pinpoint learning something from one person, because everybody that's associated with USA that continues to get invited back has unbelievable talent that they bring to the table.
Let's talk generally speaking from 2010, your first year as an assistant coach, 2015, your first year as a head coach, until 2020. How has Paul Rozzelle changed as a coach? Can you kind of talk people through your progression a little bit? You're still a young coach, but you've had a good deal of success, but you've also had some ups and downs, and you've had some time when you were not on the field coaching, and I'm sure those experiences impacted you as well. Can you talk to us a little bit about your own progression as a coach, and maybe some things that you've changed along the way, or changed your mind about, or changed how you've done some things?
Well, yeah, I think any young coach's journey is trying to figure out their identity. And the problem with young coaches, for the most part, and it's not a problem, it's a reality, is that we always teach from what we know. right? So if we've had a certain coach and that's how they do it, well, if they've had success when you were there, you go, okay, that's how I'm supposed to do it, and then you go. In some instances, that's fine, but in other instances, you have to still be real to you. So for me, my path and my journey has been figuring out what my identity is as a coach and what I view as important. And so obviously as a young coach, you may be higher strung and, maybe a little quick trigger and angry. And, for me, we were like one of the only Western schools in our region, and we were kind of like the newcomer in the town, and we're here winning league championships, and our head coach at the time did a good job of playing into the fact like, hey, nobody likes us, and we like it like that, all the little stuff that you do. But as a young coach, I bought into it, like, yeah, I'll be Darth Vader if you want me to. We'll be the evil empire. I don't care. And I just went back on some of those years early and just kind of laugh and cringe a little bit at some of the stuff I've done. And, you grow up and you figure out what's important. And listen, I've got more desire in my little toe to win a national championship than most people do. But at the same point, I've kind of grown and realized that, hey, are we developing good people? First, are we developing guys that can go on and have an impact at the 4-year level and hopefully the professional level? And that those are the things that I'm kind of finding important now. It's guys coming back, and we just had a young man. He's actually in the Oakland A's organization. Was drafted 2019. He just had a baby last week, and like starting out, because I'm old enough now that I'm starting to see my players grow up too. And so it makes those little things like that important. And so it was all baseball all the time. It was the only thing I cared about. And boy, was I way off. We always had good relationships with players, but it was predominantly based on baseball. And then the relationships formed through that. Well, now, I want to have a relationship with you. I want to make sure you're a good person and you can be a good husband and good father one day. And then, oh yeah, we're going to play a high level of baseball too.
I'm sure for some kids coming from different programs, that's a new message. But if it's a new message, I've got to imagine that a recruit hearing that for the first time has got to be like, wow, I would like that. You said everybody is. Young coaches are typically a product of their environment, to paraphrase, but you're a lot of times you are what you know, and you will sometimes take on the personality of coaches that you've had in the past, and I know it was that way with me as a young coach. I probably too much took on the personality of some of the head coaches that I had that weren't necessarily a natural fit for my personality. Some of it was, some of it wasn't, but also sometimes I had some ideas in my mind, like as a young coach especially, I've got to be this way in order for the players to take me seriously and really like see me as a coach and not a peer because we're similar age, whatever it may be. And I know that I wish I could go back and just have a conversation with myself at that time of my coaching career. And we had good success. And I think I had I got help players to get better, but I also think that I could have just done a better job of relating to people and making it about more than baseball, which I feel like sometimes my players probably got the impression that it was just about baseball with me. And that's because I made the decision that like that was going to be it. Our relationship is going to be baseball. And I can kind of trace that back. My first year coaching, I was at the same school where I played. So I'm all of a sudden coaching guys who I had been playing with and who, frankly, a lot of them were better than I was. And all of a sudden now I'm their coach. And it was just a strange position to be in. I was grateful for it, but it was just a weird position. I know we took our southern trip that first year. We went to Florida for a week and we're playing down there. My head coach basically at some point, because I was hanging out with players, playing cards with players and like eating meals with players because they're my friends. And he's like, at some point, like he came up to me, he's like, are you a player or are you a coach? Like, what are you here? And I was like, okay, I guess I need to separate myself. And my next couple jobs, I carried that with me. Like, I really need to draw the line here. and I wish my line was in a little bit of a different place than it was.
Yeah, no, I mean, but your path right there is not different than a lot of people's paths. Again, it may have a little bit of different twists and turns, but the substance is all going to be the same. It's the young coach trying to figure out their voice, trying to figure out who they are, what they deem important. So when they figure out what they find important for them, then they now can trickle that down to their players. And it's a process. And coaches can sit there and you can have all the advice in the world. And if there's a young coach listening to this now, I can beat you over the head with it, but you're not going to learn it until you do it, right? Like you're going to go, you're going to have failures, and you're going to have years and things that you do that you go, oh my gosh, I can't believe I just did that. And again, right, like, people look at us, and our first year, we're finishing third at the World Series, and like, so man, this has been nothing but success. But that could be further thing from the truth. You know, yes, we still won 30 plus games every year, but there's 2 years in there where it was just 30 and 31 wins, and we're just a couple games over 500. Those were rough years because we had set a precedent of success and how we're supposed to be, and then we kind of went backwards. But we went backwards because I was going through those growing pains of figuring out what kind of program I wanted to run, what my message needed to be, that mission, that vision, that values, what the standards that we were going to hold ourselves to. And it was me figuring those things out through trial and error to finally now land on something to where last year, to be honest with you, last year was the first year that I felt extremely confident. Not that we were going to have success, but I felt confident in where our program was. And that, okay, like I'm seeing the things I want to see. And those come from long, hard looks in the mirror. And again, our values are selfless, relentless ownership. And that ownership 100% has to start with me. If my team isn't performing, right, if you blame the players, to me, that's a cop-out because you're in charge of this circus. You know, why is it going the way it's going? So there were some long, hard looks in the mirror after seasons, and it wasn't just like one season. It was a couple seasons like, hey, I got better in this regard, but man, I really let this other thing slip here, and you've got to be a lot better as the head coach here. And, you know, hey, I didn't come prepared today in practice to be the best coach I could be. I think y'all got worse today, and it's 100% my fault. I got to be better tomorrow. And it's being able to have those conversations with yourself, because that's, to me, that's where growth happens. And so we can't be above it as coaches because we're asking the players to do the same.
Now, what you just said there about telling your players, hey, I didn't come prepared today to be my best, to be the best coach I could be, and you guys didn't get better because of that. Are those actually conversations you've had? Because I know that if there are coaches listening to this, it's one of the most terrifying things I think out there for a young coach who is trying to figure it out, to admit to players that he doesn't have it all figured out. Like, have you actually had those conversations with players, with your team? Like, I screwed up here. I didn't do the right thing. Or like maybe there's a philosophy you had and like, we're going to change that philosophy. And I know for guys, like, that's a thing too. Just, it's maybe partly an ego thing, but it's also partly like you want your players to trust you, and you worry that if I admit that I've got these faults, or I didn't do this good, or like from one year to the next, like, hey guys, we did this last year, but we're going to change that this year. Like, I think some, young coaches, and I know I had this, you worry, like, am I going to lose my players because they're going to think that they're going to see that I'm not 100% sure. They're going to see that I might be 90% sure, but I'm not 100% sure. And am I going to lose my players because of that? So I'm just interested if you've had that conversation with your team, and if you did, how did it go? Because I think there's a lot of people probably listening to this that maybe haven't had that conversation, and maybe they're selling themselves short by not having it. Do you mind kind of getting into that a little bit?
Yeah, no, I mean, we have that conversation all the time, and those can be large scale or small scale. But again, ownership and accountability, our guys, they get tired of hearing it because it's literally said every day. And so, again, they start the year and they get put in accountability groups. So it's all about being accountable. And if you fail at something, it's nobody else's fault. It's yours. And we have to take ownership. And real quick, I heard Daniel Cormier, the UFC fighter, say it in an ESPN interview or something, but it just registered with me. He said, I didn't know he was a high school wrestling coach. Which is pretty awesome if your high school wrestling coach is the UFC heavyweight champion. But he said, our guys take the mat. We with the sole intention and purpose of getting their hand raised. But when that doesn't happen, we have to directly relate it back to something that we did not do, nothing else. And that right there, that was one of the most, career-changing quotes I've ever heard, because it came at a perfect time where I needed that accountability and ownership. So there have been small scale at the end of a practice, right? Like, I'll come and we'll have, usually I have all the practice plans posted first thing in the morning so guys know what we're doing. But there are days where, like, hey, I had to go take my son later. He woke up later. I got a 2-year-old, and take him to his grandmother's house. And it's about an hour round trip back to school. And then I get in the thing, and then we got a recruit visit, and then all the other things that come along with the head coach. And I'm putting out a half practice plan, 30 minutes before, so guys are already walking in not prepared, and maybe the energy level's not where I need it to be, and so immediately after practice when we meet, it's confronted. Hey, I did not set you guys up for success today, and I apologize for that. I will try my best to be better tomorrow, because those things happen, because the player's going to have a bad day, the coach is going to have a bad day, but we don't do anything if we don't acknowledge it. For some young coaches, you're so scared to death to not know something, or to appear that you are incapable of your position. I have found that, I don't know, is almost just as powerful of an answer as trying to fake your way through something. When I'm in the cage now, we're working to a guy, and we're working on stuff with hitting, and we're in our swing training stuff in the wintertime, and we're both trying to get him to do something that's unique or different to him, and he doesn't have a feeling for it, and I may not have an exact idea. We say, I don't know. And hey, we'll bring another coach. What do you see? And so to me, it's that vulnerability that leads to a better relationship and a better connection, which ultimately down the road in the long game gets you to where you need to be, because now there's trust involved. That I'm not selling them a bag of goods. I'm not blowing smoke. That we are literally trying to solve a problem and figure out what we've got to do to make you better. So now it's a group effort into your development and your pursuit. Like, it doesn't matter what I know, it matters what you understand and you know. So those things have happened and do happen on the regular. In a large scale format, yes. At the beginning of last year, my 2019 year was a very rough one personally for me. Lost my father in December, and then my son was born in October. They thought he was blind. They thought he had a brain tumor. It was a nightmare spring, to say the least. So baseball was not on my priority list, and my team suffered from that. We had a team that I felt could have competed for a national championship. But again, you look at the numbers and you go, okay, nothing terrible, but I just really felt like I let them down. And, when we came back to school, I met with all the sophomores and laid it out on the line and, said that, this is where I feel like I failed you, but here are the things that I'm going to do this year to prevent those things from happening, and I promise you're going to get the best version of me in every way, shape, or form. And then ultimately, obviously, our season was cut short, but we did our exit meetings, and I had quite a few players in their questionnaires and stuff at the end talk about, you said this, and this is what you did, and you stuck to it, and this, it was nice to see. So yeah, those conversations, again, I'm not trying to tell you my life story or anything, but I just think it's very, very important for a young coach that it's okay to be vulnerable, it's okay to not know, and you can get a lot further than you think by having real open and honest dialogue and communication with your players.
That's great stuff. And you said you're not here to give us your life story, but I think that's why people like listening to these things. I mean, it's good to hear the real side of people and coaches, and there's more to it than just, the guy in the uniform. There's more to this and to coaching. But I will stick with the coaching part of it for right now. Just maybe one last question, Coach, before I do let you go. I'm interested to know, when you were sort of going through some growing pains as a coach and trying to figure out exactly who and what you needed to be and wanted to be, did you lean on anybody else? You said there was a lot of looking in the mirror, which I think is really important. Did you have anybody else that maybe you leaned on? Did you have, was there somebody maybe you called and just talk to, whether it's a baseball person or not? Did you read books? Did you listen to leadership podcasts? Did you what was there anything in particular that kind of helped you to get to where you wanted to be, from where you were, you wanted to make some changes and adjustments, you had to kind of figure some things out. Is there any one or thing in particular that helped you get there?
Yeah, well, the first one is Frank Pay, the guy who started the program. I grew up a block away from him when he was the coach at LR, and I was going to his camps. And so he's been an active member in my life. Was in my wedding. Like he's my guy, even though he's down the street. And technically, I guess now we're competing against each other. I still will call and we unload stuff and vent stuff, and am I doing the right things? And I would obviously lean on him, and he's always been a great support system for me. My wife is always there. She's a teacher, but she is unbelievable at what she does. To be able to have some honest conversations with her and to kind of help look in the mirror and what we got to change or what we got to do. But for the most part, in terms of looking outward, I believe success leaves clues, right? So I tried to find successful people, whether they were successful people in coaching baseball or successful people in business or successful people in whatever role that they play in this world. And I wanted to see what they do. And it's amazing that there's a lot of similarities in terms of the high motivators, high energy, high productivity people. They all kind of have similar things about them. So I just started to kind of lean on those things, and obviously you read books, you listen to podcasts, but you start to kind of find somebody that's doing what you want to do and start to figure out how they're doing it. And I think that's a very good way to start. And that is not the end-all be-all, right? Like, I think motivation is fleeting, so I think a lot of people look for motivational videos or quotes or whatever, and that's great because motivation can get you started, but ultimately it's the discipline that keeps you there. So as you look to these outside sources, that's fine, and go find what they're doing that makes them successful. But if you look really deep down, they have some form of discipline that keeps them there every day, even in the days when you don't feel good. And to me, that's where the success is. And people trying to learn how to grow and get better is that, okay, I don't feel good today, whether that's physically, mentally, emotionally, but I still have a responsibility for this program and these players to give them the best I've got for the hour and a half, 2 hours, whatever the time frame that you're allowed with it is. So, look outside, podcasts, books, all that stuff is phenomenal. And it's a great way to get started, but I would look to find something that holds that discipline in place that allows you to do it day in and day out.
And just as maybe some direction in people's lives, is there a book or a podcast or multiple that you particularly maybe got something out of that helped you to establish what you needed to internally? Is there anything you want to point to, just to maybe anybody that's listening to this that might need a little something to help them with some direction? Is there a podcast or book or multiple that you would like to point to, just maybe to help some other people out, if there's one out there?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to kind of stick with more of the physical nature mindset of follow anything. David Goggins, former Navy SEAL, Jocko Willenick, his stuff is really, really good. Cameron Haynes is an ultra marathoner and a bow hunter, and that's something actually that's resonated with me here in the last couple months. It's something that I've started to do. I hate running, but watching him and understanding why he does it, I've started to do it. My first run I ever did was like a month ago, and I got to a light, and a lady rolled down her window and told me I was doing a good job, honey, keep going, because apparently I looked like I was going to die. And just yesterday I did a virtual challenge where we finished 25K in 4 days. So it's like, I hate doing it, but I heard Cam Haynes talk about it one time. He said, his big deal is run, lift, shoot. So every day he runs a marathon, he lifts weights, and he shoots a bow. And he goes, those three things are kind of my principles and my core values of what I want to do every day. He goes, the shooting part's easy, that's fun, right? Like the shooting arrows is always fun. Lifting's fun. You turn the music up, get a good pump in, that's fun. He goes, for me, running is the hard part. because nobody likes running. He said, but that's my discipline for me. That's the thing that I do every day that's hard, that I have to have a conversation with myself to get out of bed or to hit the road, to go lace up, to finish it, to not stop. And he goes, those things create mental calluses for me. And so that, for me, is what I've been doing a lot here recently, and it's helped me tremendously. 1% Better podcast, Joe Rogan stuff, because he's always talking to high-level people. And it's just interesting to hear the thoughts and the habits of what high-level people are doing. And so that's kind of my short plug bag, I guess.
Awesome. And that's what we hope to do here. I hope that these podcasts for Figure It Out turn into that same type of thing for coaches who want to get better. I mean, to be honest with you, every podcast that I do, Coach, I get something out of. I learn something. I learn how high level performers are thinking and functioning and things that they do in their life, and it helps. I'm not on the field right now, but it's a different kind of challenge to not be on the field and to have a job that it's a job and it's not necessarily like a real passion to have that job. There's millions of people in the world who are like that, and that to listen to how other people sort of motivate themselves or why they do certain things and the disciplines that they have. Like, it's great. It's great for anybody, whether you're a coach or not. And I hope that the Figured Out Baseball podcasts turn into that. At the beginning of the podcast, you kind of said you're a nobody, but whether or not you're a nobody in the baseball world, you're obviously someone who I think has a lot of things going for yourself and a lot of things moving in the right direction. And I believe that the leadership that you bring to your teams, the discipline for yourself, and that you really put a lot of time and effort into molding yourself into the person you want to be, and it's pretty evident listening to you talk. This has been thoroughly enjoyable for me. This is Paul Rozzelle, everybody. He's the head coach at Catawba Valley Community College, a Division II junior college in Hickory, North Carolina. Coach Rozzelle, this has been awesome. Thank you so much for the time and for everything that you've shared with us today.
Jeff, I appreciate it. Again, honored to be here. And like I said, this podcast, you're doing a great job with it, so keep it up. And excited to continue to follow your path as well.